Buckley. Michelle Kaiser. Here. Dave Clifford.
Here.
Mike Lemsworth.
Here.
Titus Lindsay is not here tonight. Aaron Novak.
Here.
John Thurber.
Here.
Thank you.
Exits are to your left and right and behind us. Review and approval of board agenda. F, the Board of Education, after review, approves the agenda as presented and or amended. Can I get a motion, please? Mike? Second? Dave? Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. 0. Minutes of November 14th, 2022 business meeting. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of the November 14th, 2022 business meeting as presented at this meeting, please? Motion, please. Aaron, second. John. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. 6-0. Presentations.
Now. All right, I'll try. Hello. I could just enunciate and project. Good?
Should be better.
Keep talking?
There you go.
Okay. Good evening, Greenwood Lake School Board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. And I'm beginning this evening with our principal reports. Mr. Kmart from the middle school. I'm going to start with you, and then we'll go to Ms. Conlon. We're going to go back to Mr. Kmart.
Good evening. Just a quick looking back since our last meeting, we were able to celebrate our Students of the Month for November, and our character trait for November was kindness. The students chosen were John Michael R., Isabel C., Kylie F., excuse me, Louise B., and Christine C. Excuse me, I might have to pass over to my man.
All right. Well, December's always a very busy month at the elementary school, and I'm happy to take a moment to highlight some of our activities. Our enhanced participation in last week's National Computer Science Education Week went very well in the Hour of Code. Project Lead the Way teacher Jake Shedman introduced all K-3 students to computer coding using fun and interactive maze challenges, some of which revolved around the highly popular Minecraft game. Students dragged and dropped lines of Blockly code, which is an age-appropriate precursor to Python programming language, in order to execute commands and navigate characters to reach goals and move up to the next level. And once introduced to the site, Mr. Shedman sent information home to parents and encouraged students to complete a full hour of code and earn a certificate prize for their extended efforts, initiative, and perseverance in solving increasingly difficult puzzles. So that was a very fun activity this whole past week. Our kindergarten students took their first field trip to the Mid-Hudson Children's Museum, where they interacted with and learned from a variety of hand-on exhibits, such as a visual trip through the solar system and the creation of a swirling water funnel, to name just a few. Students also learned about the roles of many community workers, which connects to their social studies curriculum. Students and staff are working hard and getting very excited for our upcoming winter concert, which will be held next Tuesday, December 20th, with K1 students performing at 12:30 and grades 2-3 students showcased at 1:45. We look forward to welcoming parents and families inside our gymnasium once again to enjoy the concert and view festive student artwork. A huge thank you to Mrs. Kroll, Mrs. Emsworth, and the entire specials team for their collaborative efforts on this much anticipated event. Please come and join us if you're able. It will surely warm your heart for the season and the holidays. And speaking of our specials team and the holidays, December can be a challenging time for some families, and our local Greenwood Lake Food Pantry often runs low on supplies during this month, so the specials teachers have been instrumental in organizing and hosting a whole school donation drive. Non-perishable food items and household items will be collected through this Friday, December 16th. And classroom teachers attending an excellent PLC with Ms. Polchinski to hone and align reading assessment skills across all grade levels as we prepare to conduct winter benchmark assessments next month. And a note to all parents, look for second quarter progress reports, which will go home with all students later this week. And lastly, our wonderful PTSA and supportive, wonderful and supportive, host their annual holiday shop all this week. Elementary students will have the opportunity to visit and select thoughtful and affordable gifts for their family members. And in closing, I'd like to acknowledge and thank all that the board, district administration, staff, and Greenwood Lake community do to support our school, and wish everyone a happy, safe, and enjoyable holiday season.
Thank you. We'll see how this goes. Sorry for that. Thanks, Diane. I was saying, students of the month for November for kindness: John Michael R., Isabel C., Kylie F., Luis B., and Christine C. We did have our parent-teacher conferences, and recently Mrs. Polchinski led a PLC on data for their noticing and wonderings, where teachers looked at a protocol for facts and questions, looking at observations and reviewing student data to help plan for instruction. We did just have our peer leadership training. Mrs. Greenberg is here. Mrs. Greenberg, one of our advisors, and Mrs. C. led a great opportunity for our students in a training on all things leadership this past Friday and Saturday. And upcoming, we have our winter concerts will be on the 15th. Our grades 4 and 5 are at 5:30, and our grades 6, 7, and 8 are at 7 o'clock. Also here at the middle school, a reminder that our progress reports will be going home on the 22nd, and next Thursday we'll be celebrating our students that achieved high honor roll, and perfect attendance for the first quarter. Thank you.
And at this time as well, I'd like to introduce Mr. Kamar. He is going to be updating the board and the community on the eligibility policy that was reviewed by a committee at the middle school this summer and has been implemented this year.
So when we enacted this policy, the board had requested a review after the first quarter, after we had some time to put this in place. So I'll cover the highlights, some of the hurdles and stumblings that we saw, some of the feedback that we've received, and kind of where we are right now. So two of the things that were key for the academic committee to address were, especially as we headed into COVID and compassionate grading, attendance, we really wanted to dial in on student accountability, looking at obviously grades and attendance. So these are the highlights of the summer committee work. We had decided that any student that at their progress report or report card was any student failing one class would be placed on academic probation. And then any student failing at any time on any graded report, progress reports, or grading, 2 or more classes would become ineligible. And then the attendance component, New York State sets chronic absenteeism at 10%, so that was the number that we landed on as a committee for probation and eligibility purposes. So the students placed on academic eligibility, they have to stay after school Monday through Thursday from 2:30 until 3 o'clock to be able to continue participating in all school activities. This includes all things outside of their grade level trips, clubs, athletics, school events like dances, after school movie showings, etc. This does not include, I want to clarify for the board and the community, this does not include trips tied to the curriculum. Every grade level takes a fall and a spring trip. All students go on those no matter what. Students that are placed on the academic eligibility probation program, they're on there for the duration of the 5 weeks with the intention of trying to set themselves up for success in the following 5 weeks. Students that choose not to attend for whatever reason become ineligible to attend the clubs and activities in the bullet point above. For the attendance component, I mentioned the 10%, and that New York State does define chronic absenteeism at the 10% threshold. So if a student is placed on academic eligibility, they have to attend after-school support, and at the next grading cycle, if they're still above the 10% threshold, they then become ineligible. And I want to clarify this also for the board and for the community. This is for unexcused absences only, right? And I want to talk about the attendance component. Superintendent Haddon, if you can go to that next slide. So this is eligibility for academics, for excused and unexcused absences for both New York State and for Green Bay. I already talked about the state. 1 and 2 are the bullet points that are in the current Green Bay Board of Ed policy. And I won't read the definitions there, but those are the things that we consider as excused. Anything medical, legal, religious, anything related to impassable roads, things of that nature. The unexcused absences include an absence of tardy or leaving school early for some of the things you see there, things like family vacations, personal grooming appointments, things of that nature. Oversleeping, we get lots of various reasons, but they are not excused. So, with that, when a student's placed on academic probation, here's the process. At the progress report or the report card window, Mrs. C and I go through and generate a list of any student that was failing any class here at Green Lake, and we run an attendance report for the whole school. We go through each student, look at why they were identified. Sometimes there's a nuance with their attendance. Maybe there was an issue with how it was coded. Maybe we know they were sick and out for a specific excused reason, but the note wasn't provided yet. Mrs. C or the ladies in the office would contact that family and make sure that we get that excused note in place so that we can identify it the correct way. We connect with the teachers on students and what those failures look like and the why, and we make sure that list is accurate. Once everybody's in agreement, we generate the official list, we share that with the staff, and then that notification goes home with the progress report or the report card. So if we print it here and they go home, we send it, or if it's a mailing report, we send that home as well. So that the family has time to receive that notification. They go through the letter, they can ask any questions that they have of us. And once that takes place, we meet with the students. We notify them why they're on probation or why they're ineligible. We talk about supports that are in place for them to help them be successful. And then once that's all taken place, we notify the teachers that the kids are all aware and the probation period can officially begin so teachers can start expecting to receive students for after school support. So some of the things that came up as we rolled the new policy and procedure out, we did anticipate and embed within the policy that families could submit appeals to the committee, and we had a couple instances. For example, there was one family that had an emergency that as a family they had to leave town to go tend to. They provided those details and submitted that to me and then eventually to the committee. And then another scenario where a family had a medical emergency and they needed to leave town for that. And obviously our students had to go with them. So we saw that as obviously reasons to take into consideration and accepted those appeals, and those students, while we continued to monitor their progress, they did not go into probation where they were required to meet every day after school. So those were just some things that came up that I wanted to share with the board. Another issue was attendance. So generally there's about 45 days within a marking period So the first progress report was 20 days in, and then at about 45 days in was the first report card. So 10% at 20 days is 2 days out, or 2 days tardy. So some families made some valid points. Like my kid was tardy 3 times and is placed on probation. They missed a total of 6 minutes of school, because we're really tight about the cutoff at 7:50 because we release from homeroom to go to first period. So if you walk in at 7:51, you're tardy for the day. So if I do that 3 times, I've missed 3 minutes of instruction, and I'm now placed on probation. So we did see the need. Another example was at the 5-week mark, if I had to go away and leave town for whatever reason and my child missed 3 days of school, if I took that same trip in the third quarter, where we were 120 days in, 10% of 120 is 12. I took the same 3-day trip in May, and I could have done that 4 times and my kid was still eligible. Right? So there was some nuance to the timing of the absences and tardies when there was so few days to account for. So as a committee, we met to look at the list, and almost 20% of our students would have been placed on academic probation. It was a very high number, with 2 being the cutoff. So I don't think that fit the spirit of what we were trying to do as a committee, and we were able to put our heads together and kind of examine that. And we arrived at 3 tardies equaling 1 absence, and 3 absences was the number. So it was over 3 absences or over 9 tardies for the 5-week mark. We carried that through for the first quarter, and it seemed to kind of iron itself out, but we anticipate heading into the second quarter at the mid-year mark, we're 90 days in, a student that has 9 absences or tardies should have some accountability to that. So we'll continue with the policy when we hit that mark. Excuse me. But that was an adjustment that we did make that I wanted to share with the board and the community. That there was some flexibility. We are looking for accountability and to drive these messages and the importance of being here at school and tending to your academics, but also the reasonable exceptions that needed to be made. So we will look to revisit that to adjust the policy, to write that in formally as we head into next year. So other feedback, we do hear from our staff that as we've gone through a full quarter of this, an increased effort from students to submit work, to make sure that they're getting here. Kids are commenting about like hustling in the morning to make their bus and get here on time. Kids that at times tend to be habitually late. Not having a penalty, so to speak, or accountability to that. I was going to do it. So now that this is in place and they see that, we have had some students that unfortunately were ineligible. While we continue to support them, the kids do see like, oh, hey, they don't have these opportunities available for after-school participation. I want to keep myself in good standing. So we are seeing some positive from the policy, and we're pleased with the direction it's headed. On the left, I think this is the meat and potatoes of the policy as we stand now. That was the first quarter progress report on your left, and there's where we are currently on the right after the first report card. So the 5-week mark, 15 kids were failing 1 class, and of those 14, you'll see that 8 were able to attend after-school support and get themselves into good standing. 1 of those students moved away during that window. 4 of those students continued their struggle and either were still failing that class or a different course and stayed on probation. And 1 of those kids went from failing 1 class to 2 classes and are now ineligible. Of the 3 students that were failing 2 classes at the 5-week mark, those 3 students continue to stay ineligible because they're still failing 2 or more classes. There were 10 students placed on probation for attendance after the first 5 weeks. All of those students came off the list at the first quarter mark. You see the improvement from 14 students down to 9 from 5 weeks to the first quarter, and I think part of that was the message driven home of the importance of academics and what would happen if your grades weren't where they needed to be. So we went from 14 on probation to now 9 students. 4 were part of that original group, and 5 new students failed the class at the first quarter mark. We did see an increase, though, that 3 students were ineligible at the first quarter. There are now 5 students that are failing 2 or more classes out of our student population. 5 kids are on attendance probation at this time, and all 5 are different kids than from the first progress report. So that's kind of a current status update of where we sit at this time. And at the 5-week mark here, just before the break, as we come out of the holiday, our next round of academic probation will begin. So with that, are there any questions from the board or discussion items?
I was just glad to see that, it is making an impact, and as long as you guys can see it, that's a plus.
Very good.
I definitely have heard several middle schoolers say, oh no, I've got to get here on time. So that's working.
Good. Thank you.
Other questions from the board or any clarification on any of the items that's on the?
No, it's like we're moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that is it for my report this evening. Thank you.
Let's go to Lizbeth. Report, please.
First one is, as of now, I think I sent you before about application for, the universal lunch program. There's a pre-form, so that's really one thing that's going on here.
Thank you. Axel?
December 7th was the Oxford meeting. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend, and I don't know if it was alone. It wasn't very my weekend. But really, the only big news added was Bill Hector is retiring. It's kind of a celebration for him. So we wish him the best. He's done a great job up there, and that's it for me.
Thank you. Thank you. Facilities?
We received approval to move forward with replacing 2 of the roofs here at this building that are the most critical to get replaced prior to big replacement when we're replacing the roofs here at elementary school. So hopefully we'll have contracts in place in that work and we begin this coming summer. And then we did find another leak at the elementary school, but I believe that was in the process of being worked on.
Thank you. Audit committee?
Have not met.
Have not done. Budget?
We had a budget workshop last week, just to kind of kick off the season, and lots of meetings to go.
Yeah. Policy? I don't see a TTSA liaison or a village. All right, moving on. Privilege of the floor. Anyone? Adopt 2023-2024 vision and district goals. Can I get a motion to adopt the 2023 and 2024 vision and district goals as presented? Motion, please. Michelle, second. Aaron, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Financial reports and warrants. A motion to approve the November 2022 financials and as presented, please. Motion, please. Dave, second. John, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Approved tuition contract, Chester UFSD. A motion to approve the tuition contract for Chester UFSD as presented. Motion, please. Michael, second. Aaron, John, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Approved tuition agreement, Warwick Valley CSD. A motion to approve the tuition agreement between the district and the Warwick Valley CSD as presented. Motion, please. Aaron, second. Mike. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Approved athletic participation agreement. A motion to approve the athletic participation agreement for wrestling and Warwick Valley CSD as presented. Motion, please. Michael, second. John, any discussion? Yeah.
So just in relation, in case everyone's who's watching to this is for us shadowing Warwick's wrestling team. It is not combining the teams or merging the teams. It is simply shadowing. Our students are wrestling as Greenwood Lakers in all of the tournaments, and they'll be wearing Greenwood Lake uniforms. They are a Greenwood Lake wrestling team. We just don't have enough players to warrant a full team to go to a meet with, and also for practicing purposes. Chester does not have a modified wrestling team at this time, which is why we are moving forward with Warwick. Thank you.
Anybody else? All in favor? Opposed? Carries 6-0. Approve unemployment insurance transfer. A motion to approve the payment of unemployment insurance as presented. Motion, please. John, second. Mike. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Approve elementary school cafeteria kitchen capital project change orders. A motion to approve the change orders for the elementary school cafeteria and kitchen project as presented. Motion, please. Dave, second. John. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Approve transportation contract TC 004, Orange County Transit. A motion to approve the Orange County Transit LLC transportation contract TC 004 as presented, please. Motion, please. Mike, second. Aaron, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Approve addendum and EAP agreement with Catholic Charities. A motion to approve the Employee Assistance Program addendum and agreement with Catholic Charities of Orange, Sullivan, and Ulster as presented, please. Motion, please. John, second. Mike, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Approve purchase. What is that? A motion to approve the purchase of a repeater from Tycomico as presented. Motion, please. Mike, second. John, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Accept school lunch fund donation. A motion to gratefully accept the generous donation of Mrs. Mazer for the school lunch fund as presented. Motion, please. Dave, second. John, any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Create position part-time lunch recess aide. A motion to create one part-time lunch recess aide middle school position as presented. Motion, please. Mike, second. Michelle, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Accept the resignation of Finn. A motion to accept the resignation of Kim Finn as presented. Motion, please. John, second. Mike, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Appoint lunch recess aide Del Vecchio. Motion to appoint Jennifer Del Vecchio a part-time lunch recess aide as presented, please. Motion, please. Mike, second. Dave, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Appoint lunch recess aide Kennedy. A motion to appoint Marianne Kennedy as part-time lunch recess aide as presented, please. Motion, please. John, second. Mike, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Appoint substitutes, Spear, Allison, and Liebel. A motion to appoint Brad Ellison, Jennifer Liebel, and Elizabeth Spear as substitutes as presented, please. Motion, please. Mike, second. Aaron, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Accept recommendations from CSE meetings. A motion to accept the CSE recommendations as presented, please. Motion, please. Mike, second. John, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Enter into executive session upon approval of the motion. Is that what I heard? advice from legal counsel as well. Action may be taken after our executive session. Can I get a motion to go into executive session? Dave, second, Michelle?